Okay, everyone. So this will be the last video for this lesson 1.2, adding and subtracting real numbers. For the lesson, there will be another video with homework help, but we're going to finish the notes in this video. So we already have gone over adding real numbers, subtracting real numbers. Now we're going to go over what's called absolute value and work with absolute value a little bit. So the first thing that we have to do regarding absolute value in the notes is fill in this blank here. So it says the distance away from zero, distance away from zero on a number line is called the absolute value. Okay, the absolute value. I will write that out for you so you can see what it looks like. It is called the absolute value. Any numbers that are added or subtracted as absolute values will always be positive. Okay, and the reason that is because we can't have a negative distance. All right, so if you look on this number line, right? This is a -2 here, but it's still 2 spaces from zero. If we were to count to zero, take 2 spaces. There cannot be a negative distance, right? So if you're driving to Monte Vista to school from your house, you say you go 2 miles, right? So you go 2 miles there, you have to go 2 miles back. You're not going a -2 miles back to your house. You're still going 2 miles back to your house. So there cannot be a negative distance. That's why these absolute values will always be positive, because an absolute value is just the number's distance from zero. So 2 is 2. So the number 2 is 2 units from zero. The number -2 is also 2 units from zero, right? We cannot have a negative distance. All right. So for example 3, it says find the absolute value of the following numbers. So the absolute value of 6. So what we would do is we'd go to our number line, we'd find 6, and we'd count how many spaces it takes for us to get from 6 to 0. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That makes sense. 6 is 6 spaces away from 0, right? So for this one, the absolute value of 6 is 6. All right. Here for B, we have the absolute value of -2. Anytime we see these two lines, that means absolute value. Okay. Anytime we see these two lines, that means absolute value. All right. So this means we are finding the absolute value of -2. We are finding the number of spaces -2 is from 0. So we go back up to our number line, we find -2, we count to 0, we go 1 space, 2 spaces. -2 is 2 spaces from 0. So the absolute value of -2 is 2. Okay. Remember, absolute value is just the distance of a number from 0. All right. The absolute value is just the distance of a number from 0. So if you look at C, we have -3 plus 4. Okay. -3 plus 4. The absolute value of -3 plus 4. So before we take the absolute value, we have to do -3 plus 4. In this case, the 4 is bigger than the -3, so we know that our answer is going to be positive. And if we put that in our calculator, or if we thought about it in our head, we would get that our answer is 1. Okay, so this is 1. So we end up getting the absolute value of 1. So what is the absolute value of 1? We'd go back up to our number line and we would count the number of spaces it takes to get from 1 to 0. So we have 1 to 0 is only 1 space. So the final answer for this problem is indeed 1. We got the absolute value of -3 plus 4 equals the absolute value of 1. The absolute value of 1 is just 1, because 1 is 1 space from 0. Okay. So now let's move on to example 4 and kind of look at these. It says simplify the following expressions by adding or subtracting real numbers together. So for these ones, I just want you guys to go from left to right. So there's going to be 2 different addition or subtraction problems in each of these. But like I said, I just want you guys to go from left to right, solve the first one first, and then we'll add that next one here. Okay. So for this first, we have 2 plus -10. 2 plus -10. In this case, the -10 is a larger number. So we know that our answer is going to be negative. If we were to put that in our calculator, 2 plus -10 would give us -8. Okay, so that is the first addition problem we did. We're going to bring down this plus sign, so we're going to write plus, and we're going to bring down this -3. So our next equation is -8 plus -3. Since they're both negative, they will keep that sign. So we simply add -8 and -3. You can put it on your calculator. You would end up getting -11. And that is the final answer for that question. Okay, so we did 2 plus -10. We got -8. We brought down our plus sign, brought down our -3. We got -8 plus -3, and that's -11. Okay, moving on to the next one. We have -2 plus a -6. Both of those are negative numbers, so they will stay a negative number. Our answer is going to be negative. -2 plus a -6 is a -8. we were to put that in a calculator, you see that's a -8. I'm going to bring down my minus sign, bring down my parentheses with my -1. All right, here, like before, we have two negatives right next to each other. Two negatives right next to each other. Two negatives makes a positive. Two negatives always makes a positive. So we're going to make a giant positive sign. So now our new equation is -8 plus 1. If we were to put that in our calculator, we would get -7. And that is the correct answer to that problem. Okay. For C, we're going to do the same thing. As you can see, we have two negatives right next to each other. Two negatives make a positive. You're going to hear me say that all the time. Two negatives make a positive. So we have 4. And instead of minus a -5, we have 4 plus 5. Okay, 4 plus 5. That is 9. We're going to bring down my minus sign, bring down my 7. I now have 9 minus 7, which equals 2. Okay, so that's the final answer to that one. 9 minus 7 is 2. We did the first equation first, brought down our answer, brought down our minus sign, brought down our 7. We ended up getting 2. Okay, so that is the all three videos for lesson 1.2, adding and subtracting real numbers. Okay, so please rewatch these if you're a little confused, and I'll have another video going over some of the homework problems. All right, thanks, guys.